Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Chris, and where do I start? Such a crazy day. Every day is a crazy day. Every day is an exciting day, and yes, every day is a blessing. But so I was watching Yankee Stacking's latest video today. I think it was the latest video with, of course, Tim. Every video from Yankee has to have Tim. But where Tim was talking about the Canadian truckers, with everything going on, Tim's very focused on those Canadian truckers. They're getting cracked down on, and this is just Canada's becoming Nazi Germany. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I'm watching that. I'm listening to Tim talk, and I'm listening to Yankee. He's going like full blown. Yeah, it's tyranny. It's tyranny. And I'm just like, really? With everything going on in the world right now, and you're pointing to that as tyranny. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, okay, to me, it's ridiculous. Whether you love or hate the Canadian truckers, I mean, honestly, they're just really a non-issue at this point. Anyway, the funny part for me, the best laugh that I got from it was like, well, people should be boycotting the Canadian maple because to show their support for the Canadian truckers. And then Tim's like, yeah, I started off the day with 3 monster boxes, and there's only 9 tubes left, so I don't think people really care about what's going on with the truck. I'm like, exactly, nobody cares about the Canadian truckers. Come on, I mean, really, like, really? It was ridiculous. It was just ridiculous. But I laughed at that because I was just like, yeah, nobody cares. Like, why are you talking about the Canadian truckers? Nobody cares. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so of course we saw more of the same from Ukraine today, and it just keeps getting more and more juicy with what's going on. It's crazy, and like it's actually pretty inspiring to see, like, the Ukrainian people like out there like videotaping themselves, like protesting and saying voicing their opinions against, like, what they consider invaders. And it's crazy because when you see, like I said, like the videos of the captured troops and like what they say, that's kind of scary. Like, imagine, like, I've seen a lot of the comments from, like, ex-military people, and they're like, that's crazy, like, to imagine that you would be doing exercises and then all of a sudden it's not an exercise anymore. You're in the middle of you're on the front lines of combat. And again, for Russia's military, that it's made up with a lot of reservists. That I mean, I could see that happening. I could see them doing those big exercises they were doing, and then all of a sudden it's not an exercise anymore. But just the fact that the sanctions, they say, are actually hitting Russia pretty hard, which is pretty interesting to see. With anything, we always expect it to take time, especially when you hear sanctions. You're like, yeah, what is that gonna do? But to see, that the ruble's basically worth less than a penny, that's a pretty big deal. That's actually a really big deal, and that's kind of insane to see happen in real life, like in real time. I couldn't even imagine that. I mean, we all knew the ruble was going to get hit, but damn, that's pretty big. Now again, it's crazy to me to see the NATO countries so emboldened that, like, just openly at this point, like, yeah, we're gonna give them weapons, we're gonna give them, and they're talking about now, obviously giving missiles, anti-tank missiles and anti-aircraft missiles, like the Stingers, the handheld SAMs, those kind of things. I mean, that's a big deal to me. I would think those aren't cheap. As someone who's has family that works for the defense contractors, those kind of things are not cheap. So when you're handing them out like hotcakes, whether it's a couple thousand, that's some pretty good money right there. And then not only that, but now they're talking about giving tanks and potentially aircraft. That's crazy. I would have never imagined that kind of thing, like, because really, like, at that point, it full on proxy war. I mean, yeah, that's insane. But not that we haven't done that before. Yes, I know my history. Thank you. I know that in Afghanistan, that's another proxy war. But I'm just saying, like, to see it, again in this particular time frame is very interesting. So and what I'm talking about is Russia, the U.S. giving Stingers to the Afghans to fight the Russians and that kind of stuff, the CIA. Anyway, that's beyond the point. But when you watch these videos of like the regular civilians going out and, like, looking at the damage, the wrecked convoys, the Russian convoys and stuff, it's crazy to me because when I look at the equipment and stuff, like the Russian equipment, I don't know why, but it all looks old to me. I know the Russians, like um, uh, they design things not to be pretty. They design it to work, and they actually have a pretty good reputation for doing that, which is why people, they export so many arms, because the stuff they make, at the end of the day, it works and it's reliable. But it does look old to me, and like when I see some of it's like the normal stuff, like transport trucks and fuel bowsers and those kind of things, but I mean, literally, these things look like scenes out of Call of Duty, and then grandma's right there, like, poking her head inside an armored personnel carrier. Pretty insane, yelling, profanity. Pretty insane. Pretty insane to see these things in real time, and, like, it's just so fascinating to me, because we know, at the end of the day, if Russia really wanted to, they could just obliterate Ukraine. But the fact that the world's already punishing them, like, so heavily, and, like, that they could keep going. I think, the big problem with Ukraine for Russia is that, or for Putin in particular, is that, again, the familial ties and like the cultural ties there to Russia. Like, there's a lot of Russian people who have a problem with, Russia attacking them, attacking Ukraine. And like at the UN, supposedly they read a text message from a deceased Russian soldier where he was telling his mom that, the mom was asking him, how aren't you responding to my messages? And he finally responded and said that he hadn't responded because he's not, she was like, are you still doing exercises? And he's like, I'm not doing exercises. Like, I'm in Ukraine, and like, it's not an exercise anymore. We're over here, like, we're killing people and da 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 da. And the mom was like, what? Like, your dad was just asking me if I could send you a package, and, where are you? Are you okay? La, la, la. And then the guy got killed. So supposedly that's what happened. But again, I mean, we'll take that with a grain of salt, because I don't know where that came from. But to hear the actual Russian soldiers kind of saying the same thing, that, they were kind of tricked into going over there. Like, how does that work? Like on the military scale? Like, I personally, of course, I have not served in the military. I have had plenty of family that has, and so, like, to think of that, like, I guess at a certain point, it's like, especially in the old days, you only know what they tell you. So, like, I could understand that. Like, you get your orders from someone, they get it from someone else, and you kind of just do what you're told. But in today's society, like in the digital age, like where it's like I still have my phone on me, or I still have, connection to information, like, what if there's a disconnect between what they're telling you and, what you're seeing elsewhere? That's pretty crazy. Like, and this is, again, the modern world that we live in. Insane. But to see, like, even today, they're talking about that they're forming up the volunteer Foreign Legion to go fight there. That's nuts. That's nuts. Okay, where are all these anti-communists and where are all the anti-communists from the rallies with all the flags saying that communism is going to take America? Well, I mean, this is communism number one right there. So, I mean, you should be over there ready to fight, right? Well, that's not my battle. That's not my war. All right. I mean, I just thought, you guys wanted no communism. Anyway, it's crazy to see, like, the populace so riled up. And, like, the big thing, so one of the big things that concerns me with this whole situation is that, and again, this could be from reading way too many books, but, how hard is it to change the narrative? How hard is it really to change the narrative? Right now, everyone looks at the Ukraine as, the underdog and the one who's sticking the thorn in the side of the superpower and all that. Totally get it. Totally agree. But let's look at the other side. How do we change, like, if you're Vladimir Putin, how do you change that narrative? Well, there's a few ways, I would think. You could create a terrorist event, and then you could blame it, you could, tie it to the Ukrainians somehow, and be like, look, they were, they tried to strike Moscow, or they tried to da-da-da-da. You could do something like that, and, like, part of the world may say, like, look, yeah, you're right, they did, or whatever. So that's one thing. Now, in this case, and again, I'm not giving Brandon credit. Don't tell me how much you don't like Brandon. I understand. But one thing with the United States is that I personally think they did a really good job of like calling out the BS on the front end, saying, "Hey, Russia's gonna invade. This is what they're gonna say. This is what they're gonna try and do." And that, like, I've never seen anything like that before, where it's like you're calling out the BS on the front end. I mean, that was like very transparent. Like, look, they're aligned. They're lined up right here. This is where they are. They're moving more forces in. This is how they're going to try and justify it. They're going to create some type of event, whether it's a terrorist event, whether it's a fake attack, whether it's get ready, because that's what they're going to do. I mean, I've never seen that happen in my recollection. I've never seen anything like that where literally you're calling them out before they've even had a chance to do it. And of course they're denying it, and but then they end up doing it anyway. That is a whole crazy situation. And so what I'm looking at now and trying to think of is, like, let's say, for example, the Russians decided to go balls to the wall and just destroy, level the Ukrainian cities. Okay, you do that and you just created a massive, I mean, I can't even imagine. You just created, again, another massive insurgency. Not only is it an insurgency from Ukraine, but then with all these people coming in, it's Afghanistan too, except in a, I guess, a more, I don't know, friendly environment for large scale battle, because you have open area versus mountainous Afghanistan. But it's basically Afghanistan too. It's basically Al Qaeda too. The U.S. is backing a proxy war against Russia. So instead of it being Al Qaeda that the CIA is supporting, then it's now the Ukrainians. But then who knows what that turns into the future? Where are all these missiles and stuff going to end up in the future? It's crazy. Like, of course, like I agree that we should be supporting them in the proxy war, but like, think of the parallels here. No one's really talking about that. This is exactly what happened in Afghanistan. We saw Russia attacking somebody. We said, okay, let's back whoever's fighting against them. And the proxy war is obviously very different too, because again, Afghanistan is not Europe. And I've heard a few veiled, slightly not, how do I say, not politically correct references to that whole thing. I heard somebody earlier saying that he was saying that we've never seen anything like this in a civilized area. Like, this isn't Afghanistan, this isn't Iraq. And I started laughing, and I was like, you can't just call them not civilized. But these are the things that I'm thinking right now. Like, if you're Putin, how do you change the narrative here? If you destroy everything, if you destroy the Ukrainian cities and level them and kind of just get this over with and try to force Ukraine's hand to surrender or whatever, install a puppet government, I mean, you're gonna have an insurgency en masse. And then not only that, but like, if you kill Zelensky, if by chance he dies, that's another thing. I mean, haven't you seen Gladiator? You're gonna make him a martyr, and then it's even worse because now he lives forever. This is just a no-win situation, and it just keeps getting worse. But again, like with Vladimir Putin making the threat, like, putting my nuclear forces on high alert, I mean, they're pretty much on perennial alert. I mean, that kind of stuff. The reality with like nuclear weapons that I don't think people think about is, like, except for like maybe the Cuban Missile Crisis where everybody was aware of it, the times when the world was the closest to ending, no one had a clue. So when that time comes, when the world's going to end through a nuclear war, things like that, you won't know. You just die. So like, don't worry about Putin telling you that he's raising the awareness, the security level of his nuclear forces. Like, the world's not going to end that way. It's going to end when you least expect it. At least that's my opinion. You can tell me when it ends if I was right or wrong. Anyway, these are all crazy things to think about, but I would say that the best thing, the smartest thing, even though it may be a tough pill to swallow, is to give Vladimir Putin an out. Something where he can save face and kind of like end it. And I think that would be the best resolution for all sides, because the bottom line is, if this continues to go on and the Russian military decides to really punish Ukraine, like really pummel, if they're ordered to like really pummel the cities and stuff, I mean, a lot of people are going to die. Luckily, there was a lot of advance warning, but people are going to die for sure. But then again, I mean, you saw the massive column that they're supposedly sending towards Kiev. you know, 40 miles long or whatever it is. That's pretty. I mean, that's pretty insane. But that's, you know, a big force to be able to take over things. So it doesn't look like they're backing down at this stage. So we'll see where it goes. But it's very crazy to me and very very captivating. But I'm very positively impacted by like what I'm seeing from the Ukrainians, because that's what I would always think that it would be here. You know, if people, you know, someone tried to invade America or things like that, that, you know, people would be galvanized and stand up and, you know, work together, that kind of thing. But yeah, so many storylines to keep it. I mean, the ghost of Kiev, or yeah, the ghost of Ukraine, the fighter pilot who became the first ace since World War II with enemy combatants. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. There's all these, you know, stories coming out, and these kind of things like are not good for Russia. The only thing that I'm scared of, honestly, like personally, is like I said, like if Ukraine, or if the Russian military, you know, kind of started not to follow orders for some reason. That would be a big deal. That would be a huge deal. That'd be something that, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that for today. Hopefully, Ukraine these big cities keep lasting longer and longer, so we don't see too much death and destruction. Anyway, that's it for today. See you later.